Episode 34 CGers. If you've been with me this long, I appreciate you, and if you're just joining, welcome. Episode 34 marks part 2 of this 3-part series. The last episode was Sarah Salzberg, and this episode is another rock star, Brian Letendre. Now, let me talk a little bit about Brian. He's a rock star in the arts. He's been on Broadway. He was killing it. He's worked with world-renowned and international artists, choreographers, all different kinds of things. Been in multiple Broadway shows, and eventually is killing it in real estate as well. Crushing it, absolutely crushing it in real estate. Also at Bohemia Realty Group. In this episode, we talk about his interests in the arts and how that began. If he could hire any choreographer, past, present, and creative interpretive piece representing his childhood, who it would be and why. His time at Juilliard, the top 2 lessons that he learned there that served him as an artist that he's going to pass along to you. And basically his first 6 months out of Juilliard, what that was like, his moments leading up to his Broadway debut, stage door memories and favorite times on Broadway, his moments leading up to Bohemia Realty Group, and basically talking about real estate. And if you're an artist who has interest in real estate, how to crush it there and how to crush it in your artistic career as well. So I think this episode is going to have a lot of value to you. Introducing episode 34, Brian Letendre, mic drop. Welcome to another episode of The Creation Grounds. I have Brian Letendre, real estate extraordinaire, actor extraordinaire, dancer extraordinaire. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with your interest in the arts. So how did you develop your interest in the arts?
So, I like to think that it was maybe always there in that, I always felt like when I was listening, to music on the radio in a car or something, it affected me maybe a little bit differently than it did, my parents or my brothers. Like, big swells of music made me more emotional than it did other people. And, watching TV shows like Fame or I remember seeing commercials for Cats, and there was just something in me. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. By the age of 7, I was like wearing sunglasses and thinking I was a movie star.
That's cool. So if you could hire any choreographer, past, present, to create an interpretive piece representing your childhood and maybe 7 around the time that you kind of started getting that interest, who would it be and why?
It's an excellent question. I would pick Twyla Tharp. I worked with Twyla Tharp, for 4 or 5 years while I did Moving Out here on Broadway. And to date, I feel like she's probably the best storyteller through the lens of actual dance. You don't have to say a word. You're gonna know exactly what's happening. So it's like,
that's great. And you worked with her first on the show in Broadway?
I did, yeah. So she choreographed Moving Out on Broadway. She actually won a Tony Award for it, and that was my second Broadway show. I jumped into that show actually right after the Tony Awards happened.
That's awesome. And
yeah.
What would you mentioned Juilliard. What would the top 2 lessons from that school that served you most in your career thus far be?
So the first one, I think, is that, the second you stop learning is the second you start deteriorating. A lot of people would say, oh, you graduated from the Juilliard School. It's probably the best school for the arts in the world. When you're done, you've learned. And that's actually, they teach the opposite. They're like, no, when you've gotten through the school, you're just starting, and you never know everything. You never do, whether it's real estate or whether it's the arts, it's singing, it's dancing, there's always something to be learned. So you really need to stay a perpetual sponge. And the second thing I would say is that good enough isn't good enough. Never has been. And, what I do is I train people kind of for a living here in this real estate office. So I struggle with people's perfectionism a lot. So it really shouldn't have you lean towards a perfectionistic mentality all of the time. But if you look at the greats throughout history, whether it's been in the arts or not, good enough was never good enough.
It's always about reaching and growth and expansion. Love it. What would you say your first 6 months out of Juilliard and NYC? What was that like?
So my first, I would say 3 months out of Juilliard was actually kind of a gift. So I booked my first professional job before I graduated. I got booked in Carousel at the Paper Mill Playhouse. So with that left a lot of the initial anxiety of graduating. I also had made a very specific choice not to join any of the dance companies that I was either asked to join or got accepted into. I wanted to go to Broadway. I was very, very focused on Broadway. So my first 3 months were kind of a dream. I was like creating this show. Robert LaFosse was the choreographer, and I mean, he's unbelievable. So it kind of felt like I just floated out of Juilliard. Now, I was being paid maybe a couple of $100 a week. I was driving a van. You drive out to Jersey, so I was driving a van, I think, for an extra $75 a week to try to make ends meet. And the show, like all shows, closed. So the 3 months after that were kind of terrifying, and that's when I really started I was cater waitering, and I was hosting at restaurants and waiting tables and kind of bartending, although I had a baby face, so that was a little tough, so bartending jobs didn't come so quickly, but that's where I was really starting to learn the survival struggle for an artist.
And tell me about your moments leading up to your Broadway debut. You've been pounding the pavement, working for Broadway. You're very crystal clear on that's what you wanted once you graduated. So it must have felt good when you had your Broadway debut. Tell me about the moments leading up to that, and do you remember the day and what you did up to curtain in preparation for that first day?
Yeah, so I think it's important to note, because I have had a very fortunate career. I've done 3 Broadway shows and worked on Broadway for 16 years, and that can sound just, super like #blessed. After Carousel, when I graduated school, I didn't work for a year. Wow. I couldn't get arrested. I was auditioning all over the place, and, or maybe I booked, something quite small, but my agent at the time wouldn't let me take it. And so I was doing the hustle, and the next theater that hired me a year later was Paper Mill. Again, they hired me back to do My Fair Lady there, which was great. And that's when I booked Urban Cowboy. Now, Urban Cowboy was my first Broadway show. We had an out-of-town tryout, so I did that. I went down to Florida, to Coconut Grove with the show. Lonnie Price was the director, and Melinda Roy was our choreographer. They also brought in Jason Robert Brown as a composer and music director. So the team was, it was surreal. There's like so much of like, being in your early 20s and getting to do those things. I will never forget the first moment I stepped on a Broadway stage and looked out at the house. Lonnie Price actually stopped the rehearsal because my face was, I was like, I might have been the only one with the debut. I don't know, but I was just this kid who had finally stepped on a Broadway stage after I'd seen every Broadway show. I went to TKTS every Saturday to try and see a show. And I'll never forget that moment in a rehearsal. Lonnie kind of pointed out, he's like, "This is it, kid. Like, don't forget this." What I remember from opening night of that show was feeling like I was going to puke. I started the show, the curtain rose up on a group of us, and I was sitting in a squad as if I was playing dice, and I thought I was going to puke all over the stage until the music kicked in, and then I was fine.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Somebody that told me that if you're not nervous, it means you don't care about it. So that's that puking definitely I think can go with that.
I was nervous.
Yeah. Your favorite stage door memory from your time on Broadway? Any fan stories? Any people that you inspired? People that were kind of wanting to be on Broadway? Anything that happened at a stage door?
Oh, sure. Stage door is really kind of it's kind of an amazing place. For anybody that's, I was always so nervous to go to stage doors after the shows and, meet my heroes. Scott Wise is one of them. Jared Emick was one of them. There's more. But people that I'd sort of looked up to, and getting to just kind of, chat with people, especially young people, the young people that they're craving it and they want to do it. And yeah, they want your signature in a picture, but also just like any little bits of advice you can give them, My favorite stage door moment, though, probably is my family came to see me in Moving Out. I was actually on for one of the 3 principal men. I got to play the part of James in Moving Out. So I was starring in a Broadway show, and my entire family came to see the show and got to see me perform there, and it kind of just seemed like this, this culmination of all of the work that I had put in, my entire life to get where I was.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about the moments leading up to Bohemia Realty Group. So you're on Broadway, you're living the dream, and suddenly real estate kind of falls into your lap. Tell me about the moments leading up to that and working with Bohemia.
Sure. So I actually went to, I was actually in Mary Poppins at this point, and I know Sarah Salzberg through one of many Broadway channels. She worked on Broadway as well. And I heard that she was hosting a hiring event for real estate agents. And I was like, in my brain, I was like, well, that's something I could do and still act if I wanted to, like make some extra money, buy a house, who knows, do whatever what I wanted to do with this extra money. And it sounded amazing. I remember that one of the plugs she gave me was actually imagine going on a vacation for you. And at that point, I probably hadn't had a vacation in about 16 years. Wow. Because I used my vacations to work at regional theaters or film movies or commercials or, so I just had no time off. And I was like, that sounds so nice. So anyway, I went to the hiring event, and there was her and maybe 4 other people. The firm wasn't even yet built, like the office wasn't built yet. And she plugged away at it, and I heard her, and she kind of reached me, and I decided to jump on board. So I went through the school, which I hated, but it's only 72 hours. So I got through it, and I passed the test, and I started working for Bohemia.
And why do you think that some artists have an aversion to real estate? I definitely did at first. Why do you think that the majority of artists might have an aversion to it?
Oh, sure. This is easy. Ego. We have so much ego. It's the last thing to go. I think, I don't know, maybe artists when they hit 80 or 90 will finally let ego go. Well, I'll speak for me. I can't talk for other people, but I was afraid that if I started doing real estate, people would think that I had either given up, I couldn't book anymore, the business was done with me, I'd gotten too old. I mean, the things that go through our heads, you know what I mean, which are, none of it is based in reality. Mm-hmm. And I'm a culprit of that too. And I remember that Sarah said to me, because I said I didn't want to go back to school, and she was like, it's not another 4 years to get a master's, to get an MBA, so it's 72 hours, so suck it up and go. And I was like, well, what if people think I'm not acting? And she said, well, if you want people to think that you're an actor, book acting work and act, and they'll think you're an actor.
Wow.
Which was like, yeah, I mean, it was harsh, but people that know Sarah, that's just kind of, she's just clear about things, and she's right, though. You know, I couldn't argue that. So, I mean, people that sometimes will look at my Instagram page, they'll see, like, one post might be about something I'm doing creatively, and the very next post is like a duplex that I'm listing, in the village or something like that. So there really is a way of blending those worlds together. But I think the fear is that, when I was a kid, people said, if you get a fallback career, you're going to fall back. So don't get a fallback career. And I think that's some of the dumbest advice I ever got in my entire life. Because what I've created here, and I didn't even realize that I was doing it, was a parallel career. Because I never stopped acting. I just folded this in.
Right. And I asked Sarah this as well. What advantages do you think that artists in real estate have over a traditional real estate agent?
I think we're innately... I think we have more grit. I was going to say that, we're born with it, but I don't know if that's true. I think that we're conditioned to have it. Most people go and interview for a job once, twice, maybe 10 times in a lifetime. We audition for jobs maybe 10 times in a week. Mm-hmm. We're told no a lot. We still have to get up the next day and move forward. Real estate will change and can change your entire life, your financial history, your future, your retirement, your everything, but it's not opening a door. You know what I mean? That's a myth. There's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of pivoting, there's a lot of malleability. I think also as artists, we're talkers, we express ourselves. People always say I can talk the face off a quarter, meaning I'll talk to anybody, and I genuinely have this compassion and this empathy that is needed as an artist. And I think actually that maybe more than grit is what has made me successful in real estate. I don't really care what roof somebody puts over their head. I just care that I help somebody find a home so they can start to breathe, you know?
So we have that kind of like human aspect to it. I love it. How can Bohemia help an artist get started in real estate?
Well, it's what we do. You know, it's not everything that we do, and I might be a little bit biased because I actually train at the firm. Mm-hmm. You know, I train the trainers and I train the seniors once they've graduated, and I have my own junior team and I have captains. You know, I've had the luxury and the gift of being able to help people completely change their lives. The training here at Bohemia, I know this sounds like a plug, but I think it's better than any other firm in the city, and that's because it's continuous. You know, you're given a mentor from the time that you sign on at the firm until you, what we call, you know, graduate to be a senior agent. And being a senior agent basically just means that you can operate on your own. When people start working in real estate and they start making money, they're not working until 4 a.m. and then having to sing at 10 a.m. And let me tell you something, if you're working until 4 a.m. and having to sing at 10 a.m, you're not getting the job. Yeah. I don't care how good you are. Audrey McDonald wouldn't get the job. Well, maybe she would. But you can start paying for voice lessons with real teachers in the city. You can go back to an evening acting conservatory. They have those. You can get your material coached before you go in. You can get your material played before you go in, because as we know, trying to sing along with a cast recording is not really what they gave you in the music, you know? Right. So there's lots of things that you can start doing that it enables you to do that actually help boost your artistic career. So
you mentioned coaching earlier in real estate for Bohemia. And what would 3 pieces of advice or strategy mindset you would give to artists/entrepreneurs? If you could give a little...
Sure, 3 pieces of advice. Don't rely on the arts to pay your bills, even when the arts are paying your bills. Never let the no's get you down. I say this all the time, but not why me, what's next. Like, if you're saying why me, you're stopping yourself. If you're saying what's next, you're propelling yourself. Remember that you are a human first and you are an artist second. I find that this confusion happens especially in our youth. I think in our youth, we are a lot more angsty and we want to live our lives. You know, we are an artist first and foremost, and that has to dictate every single thing that we do. And we're losing the fact that we're actually a human being and have certain needs.
Got it. And what would you what skills you think real estate can give to amplify an artistic career?
Business skills.
Business skills.
Yeah. So, business skills, and also I want to say like the luxury and the power of choice, and folding in the word no to your business. You know, I know a lot of people that go out of town, principal actors, to work for $300 or $400 a week because they need Cigna health insurance and they need to get their weeks in, right? So they can't say no to jobs that they don't want to do. So then they go out of town and they do the job and they're quite miserable being there, but you can't live without health insurance, so they need to get it. That has lifted for me. I don't have to do that anymore. When somebody is offering me a contract, I both have the power to, I still have an agent, but I have the power to negotiate it, and I have the luxury of walking from the contract if I'm not going to get what I need, not deserve or am entitled to, but what I need in the contract. There's a self-worth that comes in being successful at something that is not the arts. So I think folding those into an artistic career has really helped the people that have come here and started to work in real estate.
Love it. And you mentioned earlier that you're still acting. You never stopped acting. And you also have this thriving real estate business. What are you currently aiming for in your artistic career and your real estate business?
Sure. So my goals in my artistic career have changed. You know, for a long time it was, I want to get to Broadway, and then I did that. I want to dance for certain choreographers. I did that. I want to sing for certain and I'm older. So I think that I'm a bit more selective in the things that I want to do. I certainly would love to go back to Broadway, but let's just say I'm a little old for shows like Newsies, and I'm a little young to play the character men in a show like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the shows that I'm auditioning for are I'm a bit more selective on, both for because of choice of the shows that I want to do, and also the shows that I'm probably unbookable doing right now. I am also doing a solo show at 54 Below. It'll probably be sometime in September. And I should also say, this is a great opportunity to say that I probably would not be doing that without having worked in real estate. I want 5 pieces behind me. I'm having 2 female singers helping me. I've got an amazing music director. Like, all of these things cost money. And for me, my entire, the beginning of my Broadway career was my legs. So not a lot of people have heard me actually sing a full evening. So it's a really great opportunity for me to get out there and just sing, and to actually have the financial ability to pay the people I need to help me do it properly, right? My goal in real estate is I want to continue helping people shift their perspectives. I love training. I love teaching people. I love helping them rather get what they want out of life, and witnessing them grow as they go. I also am super driven to continue my own sales business. I actually think I'm about to list a property in the West Village for one of my Juilliard teachers, which is a really serendipitous turn of events. And I'm going to continue to thrive and to make money and not rely on the arts to pay my bills, but pay my bills on my own, and then use arts to feed my soul, and retire nicely when I want to retire.
Love it. So there's somebody out there right now, an artist, maybe they haven't come to New York yet, or they are in New York. They're looking for a job, and they potentially have an interest in real estate. What are 3 things that artist would need to know if they're interested in real estate? The good, the bad, and the ugly, the challenges, the ups, the downs, all this kind of stuff.
Sure. Let's see. Well, the good. Let's go with the good first. Real estate has the potential to change the way you live your life for the rest of your life. I tell people that come on board, you need to put in a year of some of the hardest work you've ever done to change the trajectory of the rest of your life. It's 365 days. It's worth it. Another thing is that you're starting a business. Like I like to equate starting a real estate business like opening a coffee shop or a bar. There's investment. You have to buy coffee grounds before you sell that $8 latte. So giving it that mindset when you're coming in helps things land a little bit easier. And like I mentioned before, like, real estate agents don't open a door and get paid. It takes work, it takes persistence, it takes commitment and investment. That's the second. And I think the third thing would be to remember to put some of your real estate earnings back into your artistic career. I think when people come on as junior agents, their artistic career sometimes is put on a slight hold, because you really have to invest to get the ball rolling. But once the ball is rolling, you've pushed it up the hill, and now it's kind of going on a plateau. You don't have to push as hard over and over again, and you can start to take some of the money that you've made and reinvest it back into yourself.
Love it. And for the artists that aren't interested in real estate but are strictly inspired by your career and accomplishments, what piece of advice would you have for them to getting to the next stage of their career?
Let's see. Figure out what makes you uniquely you and commit to that. I think some of the biggest mistakes I see across the board are people trying to imitate somebody else, right? Like, there's already a Ryan Reynolds out there. There's already an Audra McDonald out there. I've used her name twice now. Obviously, I like her. There's already Patti LuPone. There's insert any name that you want to insert in there. Anthony Warlow. But there's only one you, and there is something about you that makes you uniquely you. And if you can figure out what that is and commit to it, that is going to separate you from the the other people that you are auditioning with, which maybe would bring me to my second point, which is that your only competition is you. Don't let yourself get all heady about who you're in the room with, or who's going in after you, or who's booking this and who's not booking this, particularly if, I think one of the biggest kisses of death is you don't book a show and then you're immediately going on one of the websites to find out who booked it. Who cares? Move on. Compete with yourself, Don't take no for an answer. I auditioned for Moving Out 6 times before I got an offer. And the first offer I got was to be the matinee James on the first national tour. My agents made me turn it down, which I very reluctantly did. And then I got asked to join the Broadway company, but they were very clear that it would only be for six weeks while somebody was gone, and then I would be out. And I stayed with the show, for 4 or 5 years after that. But it took me 6 times. So every time I didn't get it, it wasn't no, it was just not now.
Beautiful. I ask all my guests this. When you think of the word creative, who comes to mind for you and why?
Oh gosh, this might be like not a traditional answer, but parents. I could say Twyla Tharp, she's got the creative habit. She wrote a book about it. Matthew Bourne, who's one of the most incredible choreographers who I also have worked with. Jason Robert, composers, but you want to see some real creativity, look at a parent trying to wrangle, 3 kids that are smearing peanut butter on the walls and sticking, and crying and hungry, and it's an art.
Yeah, yes it is. Beautiful, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to taking a coaching session with you.
All right, that sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right, man.
All right, talk soon.
Follow Brian at Instagram at handle Brian Letendre, BrianLetendre.